Today, we continue with our enchanting story of the little prince. Let yourself be accompanied and comforted once again by the wisdom and the simple yet profound messages of the little prince on this journey. Enjoy this journey and remember, one sees clearly only with the heart. What is essential is invisible to the eye. The Little Prince, based on a story by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Chapter 9. The Departure of the Little Prince. It seems that he used a flock of wild birds to escape. On the morning of his departure, he thoroughly cleaned his planet one last time. He carefully swept out the active volcanoes. He had 2, which were very useful for cooking. He also had 1 extinct volcano, but he thought, you never know, and swept out the extinct volcano as well. When volcanoes are well maintained, they burn gently and evenly, without erupting. Volcanic eruptions are like fires in a fireplace. On our Earth, we are obviously too small to sweep our volcanoes, which is why they cause us so many problems. With a bit of melancholy, the little prince uprooted the last baobab shoots. He believed he would never return. Yet all these familiar tasks seemed especially important to him that morning. When he watered the flower one last time and prepared to place her under a glass dome, he felt like crying. "Goodbye," he said to the flower. But she did not reply. "Goodbye?" he repeated. The flower coughed, but it was not because of a cold. "I was silly," she finally said. "Please forgive me. Try to be happy." He was surprised that she did not reproach him. He stood there, bewildered, with the glass dome in his hand. This unexpected gentleness touched him deeply. "Yes, I love you," the flower said. "You could not have known that. It was my fault. It doesn't matter. But you were just as foolish as I was. Try to be happy. Leave the glass dome. I don't want it anymore. But the wind? I'm not so cold. The cool night air will do me good. I am a flower. But the animals? Well, I must endure a few caterpillars if I wish to know the butterflies. It seems that they are very beautiful. Otherwise, who will visit me? You will be far away. As for the big animals, I am not afraid. I have my thorns." Naively, she showed her 4 thorns. Then she added, "Don't linger like this. It's annoying. You have decided to go. Now go." She did not want him to see her cry. She was a very proud flower. Chapter 10. The King. The little prince found himself near asteroids 325 to 330. He decided to visit them to keep himself busy and learn something new. The first asteroid was inhabited by a king. The king, dressed in purple and ermine, sat on a simple yet majestic throne. "Ah, a subject?" said the king when he saw the little prince approaching. The little prince wondered, how can he know me when he has never seen me before? He didn't know that for kings, all men are subjects. "Come closer, so I can see you better," said the king, proud to finally have someone over whom he could reign. The little prince looked around for a place to sit, but the entire planet was covered by the magnificent ermine robe. So he remained standing, and because he was tired, he yawned. It is disrespectful to yawn in the presence of a king. said the monarch. "I forbid you to yawn." "I can't help it," replied the little prince, embarrassed. "I've had a long journey and I'm very tired." "Then I command you to yawn," said the king. "It's been years since I've seen anyone yawn. Yawning is quite a rarity for me. Come on, yawn again." "That's an order." "It scares me. I can't do it now," said the little prince, blushing. Replied the king. "Well, then I order you to yawn sometimes and sometimes not." The king mumbled a bit and seemed annoyed. He wanted to ensure that his authority was respected. He would tolerate no disobedience and only gave reasonable orders. If I were to command a general to change into a seabird, and if the general did not obey, it would not be the general's fault. It would be mine. "May I sit down?" asked the little prince timidly. "I command you to sit down," the king replied, drawing up a fold of his ermine robe majestically. The little prince was amazed. The planet was tiny. What could the king possibly reign over? "Your Majesty," he said, "forgive my curiosity." "I command you to ask," the king hastily interjected. "Your Majesty, what do you rule over?" "Over everything," said the king with great simplicity. "Over everything?" The king made a sweeping gesture that took in his planet, the other planets, and the stars. "Over all that?" asked the little prince. "Over all that," the king answered, for he was not only an absolute monarch, but a universal one. "And do the stars obey you?" "Of course," said the king. "They obey immediately. I tolerate no disobedience." This power amazed the little prince. If he had such power, he could have watched not 44, but 72, or even 100 or 200 sunsets on a single day, simply by moving his chair a little further. The memory of his little deserted planet made him feel a bit sad, and he ventured to ask the king a favor. "I would like to see a sunset. Please, command the sun to set." If I were to command a general to fly from one flower to another, like a butterfly, or to write a tragedy, or to transform into a seabird, and if the general did not carry out the order, whose fault would it be, his or mine? "Yours," said the little prince firmly. "Exactly. One must require from each one what they can perform," replied the king. "Authority rests first of all on reason. If you command your people to throw themselves into the sea, they will revolt. I have the right to require obedience, because my commands are reasonable." "And what about my sunset?" reminded the little prince, who never let go of a question once he had asked it. "You shall have your sunset. I will command it, but I shall wait, in accordance with my wisdom, for the right conditions." "And when will that be?" asked the little prince. Replied the king, consulting a large calendar. "It will be tonight at about 20 minutes to 8, and you will see how well I am obeyed." The little prince yawned. It was a shame to miss the sunset, and he was already getting a little bored. "I have nothing more to do here," he said to the king. "I'm leaving." "Do not go," replied the king, who was proud to have a subject. "Do not leave. I will make you a minister." "A minister of what?" "Minister of justice." "But there's no one here to judge." "We do not know that," said the king. "I have not yet made a tour of my kingdom. I am very old. I have no room for a carriage, and walking tires me." "Oh, but I have already looked," said the little prince, turning back to glance at the other side of the planet. "There's no one there either." "Then you shall judge yourself," replied the king. "That is the hardest thing of all. It is much harder to judge yourself than to judge others. If you succeed in judging yourself rightly, then you are indeed a man of true wisdom." "I can judge myself anywhere," said the little prince. "I do not need to stay here." Said the king. "I believe there is somewhere on my planet an old rat. I hear him at night. You could judge this old rat. You could condemn him to death from time to time. Thus, his life will depend on your justice. But you will pardon him each time, for there is only one." "I," replied the little prince, "do not like to condemn anyone to death, and I think I will go now." "No," said the king. But the little prince, having completed his preparations, had no wish to grieve the old monarch. "If your majesty desires obedience promptly, you could give me a reasonable order. For example, you could command me to leave within a minute. It seems to me that conditions are favorable." The king remained silent. The little prince hesitated, then sighed and took his leave. "I make you my ambassador," the king called out hastily. He had a grand air of authority. "The grown-ups are very strange," the little prince said to himself as he continued on his journey.